Hello, everyone, and welcome to the debut episode of the Better Than Less Than podcast. My name is Jared Hoffman, and we have an exciting show for you today. Before we get started, please, if you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. And you can also subscribe to become a level one, level two, level three member so you can get exclusive content with the HBCU Sports family. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news in HBCU sports. So, for everyone who does not know what this show is entails, this is going to be everything involving the Division II and NAIA HBCU. So, the schools from the CIAA, the SIAC, the HBCUAC, and the independent HBCUs like Harris Stowe State, Langston, Texas College, so on and so forth. You will get the news from those schools right here. So, shout out to Alabama State in the building. We won't be covering them on this show. You can watch the SWAC page podcast with Ken Rashad and Kendrick Marshall for Alabama State and the SWAC. But glad to have you here as part of the show. But I'm excited because the NFL draft starts today. So let's start things off with the D2 NFL draft prospects at the HBCU level that could potentially hear their names called or get an undrafted free agent opportunity. And the guy that everybody is looking out for is Jada Byers, the superstar running back from Virginia Union University. Jada Byers, a two-time CIAA Player of the Year, the reigning Deacon Jones Trophy winner. There's a lot of excitement around him and the potential that he could potentially be picked up by an NFL team, or if he's lucky, maybe get called in the NFL draft. Not really expected. There's not a lot of opportunities for guys at the D2 level, especially on the offensive end, to really get drafted. The last guy, I believe, was Trenton Cannon from Virginia State in 2018. So, but there's a great opportunity for Jada Byers to get a look at a training camp invite. uh, Trent, Jada Byers didn't have the best HBCU combine performance. He ran a particularly slow 40 at 4.84, which is not very good for a running back. But he made up for that in the HBCU Legacy Bowl. He had some very good runs and showed off his, while he isn't the fastest guy in the world, he has some deceptive quickness, and that could be important for him, especially since that not only has he shown that he could be great at the running back spot, that he's also shown that he can do it on special teams. He returned punts for Virginia Union, and I'm not sure if he scored a touchdown, but he showed that he has the ability to move over into special teams and make an impact for his team. So if there's anybody that's looking for a guy that can do it on special teams, Jada Byers could be a guy that they look out for. So interesting to see where if Jada Byers will end up on an NFL training camp roster and potentially play his way onto a 53-man roster or onto a practice squad. Jada Byers has all the talent in the world. We know that. But if not, it's not the end of the world for him. He could also make his way to the UFL or the CFL and the arena leagues that a lot of our guys are succeeding in the arena leagues. Jerome Johnson for Bowie State. Uh, for those who don't know, I'm a Bowie State grad, so I know about those guys. But Jerome Johnson is a guy who's succeeding in the arena leagues. Jonathan Ross, who played for Bowie State and then transferred to South Florida, he's playing in the arena leagues now. So that's an avenue that he could potentially take, and who knows, maybe play his way onto a UFL, CFL, and then we've seen some guys go from the UFL to the NFL. The kick returner for the Dallas Cowboys, I forget his name, but he was a guy that was the MVP of either the UFL, the XFL, or the USFL. He was the MVP of one of those leagues, and then he made his way to the Dallas Cowboys, and he made an impact for the Dallas Cowboys on special teams. So who knows if that could potentially be the avenue that Jada Byers takes. But Jada Byers isn't the only guy that is in line for NFL draft potential or NFL undrafted free agent market. There's also a guy like DeJuan Bell from Fort Valley State who also made his mark in special teams. He's a wide receiver, but had a very good performance in the HBCU Legacy Bowl, caught a touchdown pass in the game. And he's a guy that I've been saying for a while could potentially be on an NFL training camp roster. And I would not be surprised if teams were looking at him. It wouldn't be new for Fort Valley State to have guys in the NFL. Emmanuel Wilson, the running back, who was a former SIAC Player of the Year. He currently plays for the Green Bay Packers and was the second leading rusher for the Packers this past season. So who knows if DeJuan Bell has gets an invite to a training camp and potentially plays very. My mother is giving. She didn't want me to say it, but she distracted me, telling me to look up at the camera. Fine, I'll look at the camera, Mom. But so DeJuan Bell is a guy that could potentially make his way onto a rookie mini camp and potentially play himself into a practice squad. And Isaac Anderson as well from Virginia Union, defensive lineman. He's a guy that folks should really be looking out for. Yeah, Mom is right. Got it. So, Isaac Anderson is somebody that you could potentially look out for to see if he potentially gets on a training camp roster. Isaac Anderson was another guy who had a tremendous performance in the HBCU Legacy Bowl. So, there are some guys that could potentially make their way onto a training camp roster and possibly play their way onto a practice squad. We saw Joshua Pryor a couple of years ago from Bowie State. It's not on purpose. Look, there's a lot of guys at Bowie State that are playing themselves into pro careers, but Joshua Pryor a couple of years ago found his way on the Commanders practice squad. He got signed by the Steelers, I believe, before he got cut. So, there's a lot of talent at the Division II football level that could potentially see themselves play themselves into a pro career, so we'll be looking out for that. The NFL draft starts tonight. We'll more looking forward to day 3 for our guys. Once day 3 is over, then we'll see the training camp invites come down and the undrafted free agent contracts be given out. That's where we'll be looking out for our guys, but looking forward to see where Shedeur and Travis go. Yeah, I know we're supposed to be D2 and NAIA. Shedeur and Travis are former Jackson State guys, and that seeing some guys that started at HBCUs be selected in the first round of the draft is going to be great inspiration for our guys, and that could potentially do well for recruiting, for Jackson State and all of our other HBCUs. So looking forward to watching the draft play out and see where our guys go. All right, next up on the docket, we got Clark Atlanta. Clark Atlanta, this past season, had a transcendent year in their first year under head coach Teddy Keaton. They made it to the SIAC championship game in a year after they finished 0-10. So that led by quarterback David Wright III, who won his second straight SIAC Offensive Player of the Year award. But unfortunately, as reports are claiming, David Wright III has had some eligibility issues, and he will not be with the Panthers this season. And one of the top receivers from that season, Armon Harris, he has entered the transfer portal, and he's getting some big offers from the Division I ranks, one of which was Jackson State. And speaking of Jackson State, in light of that news, Teddy Keaton went into his recruiting bag and he picked out Zy McDonald, former Jackson State quarterback, to potentially fill that role of a starter under center for the Panthers this year in their quest for an SIAC championship. Zy McDonald, if those of you aren't familiar with that name, he is the guy that stepped in for Jackson State when their primary starter went down, and he really had a big second half for Jackson State and was key in the Tigers winning that game and making it to the Celebration Bowl. So that is a tremendous pickup for Clark Atlanta, considering that Jamal Jones is still there, Virgil Young is still there, two of their other top receivers. So that is going to be key for Clark Atlanta in their quest for an SIAC championship. And this year it's going to be wide open. It's going to be wide open with, Sam Shade leaving, Miles going to Alabama A&M. The SIAC is very wide open. Albany State is going to be in the mix. Fort Valley State is going to be in the mix. Edward Waters hopefully is able to bounce back from their off year. They lost with seeing them have to recover from the loss to Jerron Russell, which I knew was going to be a big loss for them. And so hopefully that Edward Waters is able to get themselves back into the picture. And hopefully Miles and Benedict, the last two champions in the conference, are able to pick up the pieces and hopefully make a run for the championship. But Clark Atlanta made a big move getting Zion McDonald, and a lot of their offense is still in place. My question for Clark Atlanta is, what will the defense bring? Because that was the biggest problem for Clark Atlanta throughout the season was, oh yeah, thank you, Ezra. Tuskegee as well. Tuskegee, they lost their big time receiver to Louisville. So Tuskegee, hopefully will find their way into the mix and put themselves in the SIAC picture. Like I said, it is wide open in the SIAC. But yeah, there's a lot to be excited about in the SIAC with Zion McDonald coming. The thing I have about Zion McDonald is that although he had a tremendous performance in the SWAC championship game, we haven't seen him be the primary starter for a team throughout the course of a 10 game or a 11 12 game season. We haven't seen him be the team's primary starter. He played well in spots for Jackson State, but we haven't seen him be a full-time starter. So although, yes, he played very well in the SWAC championship game and he brings some tremendous credentials to Clark Atlanta, and he could potentially fill that role and lead Clark Atlanta to success. At the same time, it's a gamble because we haven't seen him play a full season. Will he be able to last the full season and, remain healthy? What will his connections be like with the receivers? Will his receivers even want to remain there by the time opening day comes around? Who knows? But this was a big move nonetheless by Teddy Keaton to take that gamble and be able to get Zion McDonald in the door. But only time will tell if it'll work out for Clark Atlanta. Absolutely. Shout out to Chris Stevens in the chat watching, said the SIAC is going to be crazy again this year, so he'll need to be ready. Absolutely. Everybody, here's my thing about a lot of people who say that there's a lot of rumblings about like Mississippi Valley State should go down to D2. And I say this all the time. Just because you're dropping down a level doesn't mean you're taking a step down. The competition is always going to be there. Whether you're going to go into the SIAC, whether you're going to the CIAA or any of these other Division II conferences, you are going to have to deal with some tough competition. We just saw West Florida go up to the FCS level. We've seen Valdosta State continue their run of dominance after a year off. Ferris State, Colorado School of Mines. There's a lot of talented Division II programs, and that also goes for the CIAA and SIAC, West Virginia State, Lincoln, Missouri. There's a lot of talent here. So I get it that Zion McDonald is a guy who has the Division I experience, but don't think that Division I experience is going to change anything. We've seen guys come down to the Division II level and don't get playing time. We've seen guys go from the FBS to FCS and not get playing time. It's not about the level you're at. It's about the work you're willing to put in to be successful. So it's all about the work that you're able to put in and the position that your coaching staff puts you in to be successful. But I'm excited to see how Zion McDonald is makes the adjustment from Jackson State to Clark Atlanta, and what the ceiling is for Clark Atlanta. You know, I guess you could say that they will enter the season as the favorites. You know, seeing as yeah, absolutely. BCU lost to Clark Atlanta, and that's not the only time we've seen teams at the Division II level beat Division Is. We saw Norfolk State lose to Virginia State, and what was an exciting finish. We saw Bowie State beat, sorry Chris, Delaware State a couple of years ago. We've seen who was it that beat Mississippi Valley State? A lot of people, but we saw Lane a couple of years ago beat Mississippi Valley State. We've seen Central State beat.
Scan has completed. Warning: issues have been detected that need your immediate.
Sorry, live. That's what happens when you're live. There's a lot going on, but yeah. So we yeah, Lane beat Tennessee State. That's who it was. Lane beat Tennessee State. So we've seen some Division IIs beat Division Is. So that's nothing new. So yeah, you really gotta strap on them that helmet. You gotta tie them shoes up and get ready when you're playing against us, because we don't take things lightly just because we're favored to lose. You know, so again, I've said it a bunch of times, but looking forward to see the ceiling for Clark Atlanta, all the excitement going around in the SIAC, and just to go to the CIAA real quick. You know, the thing I'm curious about is, we just talked about Jada Byers earlier, is that a lot of people think that Virginia Union is not going to you let NCAT get off the hook. Sure, WSSU Ram Nation. Nah, I'm messing with you. Y'all played very well against North Carolina A&T. It's not the A&T that a lot of people remember from the late 2010s, but yeah, you definitely gave them a good run for their money, and you all had a pretty good season this past year and could potentially have a much better year this year. But back to what I was saying about Virginia Union, you know, we talked about Jada Byers earlier. Everybody thinks that this is going to be an off year for Virginia Union, but one thing that people are not taking into account is just because that Jada Byers is going out the door, that means that Curtis Allen takes that seat. And Curtis Allen has been the primary backup for Virginia Union in the past couple of years, but Curtis Allen has shown that he has the ability to be a starter on any team. And so anybody that thinks that Virginia Union is just going to be a slouch this year just because Jada Byers is out the door, think again. I would not be surprised to see Curtis Allen make a run at the CIAA Offensive Player of the Year award. That's how good he is. That is how good he is, especially with Isaiah Freeman transferring from Lincoln to Hampton. There's no telling what Curtis Allen could potentially do with the ball in his hands. Now, again, there's that risk that he drops the ball and doesn't have the biggest season, and Virginia Union falls out of the championship picture, and Virginia State, who was in the game last year, could potentially continue to elevate and make their way to the CIAA championship. You know, so who knows? But I'm one of those I'm a believer in Curtis Allen. Curtis Allen is definitely a guy that could win the Conference Player of the Year, and he can get get the Panthers their third straight CIAA championship game, something that is very unheard of and has not been done in years. Well, since Bowie State did it. Technically, we didn't do it 3 straight years, but we won 3 straight. I'm counting. I don't care what y'all gotta say. We won 3 straight. But yeah, don't think that Virginia Union is going to be a slouch this year, that this is going to be an off year for them just because they're losing a bunch of talent. Curtis Allen is very talented. They still have Dr. Alvin Parker. They survived the coaching renegade. I was one of those people that believed that he should have been at Norfolk State, but hey, you can't go wrong. If you got Michael Vick, hey, I'm not mad at them for going for Michael Vick. I wish Dr. Alvin Parker would have got that shot, but it is what it is. He's still there. He still has the majority of his coaching staff there, including Diego Rowland, who may be one of, if not the best offensive coaches in all of HBCU football at any level. Diego Rowland is somebody that I thought should have gotten some coaching opportunities at Division I level, along with Dr. Alvin Parker. So yeah, this is not gonna. If you think Virginia Union is just gonna be a gimme game, and that, think again. They have a lot of talent and they have the coaching staff to get it done. So look out for some excitement at all levels of Division II HBCU football this upcoming season. Now to our last planned topic. Better late than never. We have some coaching changes. Had some significant coaching changes at the Division II level. The most significant being that man right there on your screen, Devin Hohen of the Bluefield State Big Blue, leaving the team for Fayetteville State after Luke Delagio mutually parted ways with Fayetteville State after leading the team to its the best record in the CIAA this past season. Luke Delagio, for those who aren't familiar, is a Bowie State Hall of Famer, led them to their best season in school history in 2003, led them to a 30-4 record in the Final Four of the Division II tournament, led them to multiple CIAA championships, and made his way to Fayetteville State in, I believe, 2018 or 2019, and led them to a CIAA championship in 2022, multiple 20-win seasons. So you're thinking that it's going to be a major loss for Fayetteville State, but they bounce back and they get Devin Hohen from Bluefield State, who led the Big Blue to the CIAA championship game. Fell short against Virginia State, but they did just well enough in the regional rankings to make it to the Division II tournament as an at-large bid. And they gave their first-round matchup some problems before they were taken down. The biggest story from Bluefield State is obviously CIAA Player of the Year Jordan Hines, this being his final year. And that, with that in mind, Bluefield State moving on from the Jordan Hines era, it's not really surprising that Devin Hohen was able to find a home somewhere else, with Bluefield State, where it was going to be a tough task for the Bluefield State to continue to contend in the CIAA without their star player in Jordan Hines. But he'll get to make his mark now in Fayetteville State after, I believe, a 4-season stint at Bluefield State. You may look at his overall record and get to assume that maybe it's not the best hire in the world, but look, Devin Hohen can coach. He took 2 teams in Bluefield State to marks that you wouldn't have thought they could in the CIAA tournament, given their overall record. They were 9-22 the previous year, and he led them to a win over a Winston-Salem State team that was very good. They were led by that season's CIAA Player of the Year, Jalen Austin, who was a talented player. WSSU Ram Nation can tell you all about him, and this year they were much improved over the previous year, and they looked like a well-oiled machine. They were dominant in their opening round win against Johnson C. Smith, and then in the semifinals against the aforementioned Fayetteville State team. So I assume that Fayetteville State was watching that game very closely and thinking that Devin Hohen could be a guy that be patrolling our sidelines. And lo and behold, they made that happen. So looking forward to see what Devin Hohen does with Fayetteville State this season. As far as I know, I have not seen Bluefield State make an announcement on a hire in replacement of Devin Hohen. If anybody in the chat can correct me, but I haven't seen anything about. Yeah, absolutely. But you're worried. I read that wrong. You're worried about Hohen at Fayetteville State. I'm curious why. Devin Hohen is shown himself to be a very good coach and leading his team to wins when they matter most. So his regular season record isn't the best, 48-62. not the most impressive mark in the world, but he's shown himself that he can lead his team to wins when it matters most when it comes tournament time. Like I said, he led them to 2 wins, including a win against Winston-Salem State the previous year, and he got them to the conference championship this year. So he's shown that he can win when it matters most. So I I slightly I can understand where you're coming from about being worried about him, but to me, I think that he has what it takes to potentially get the job done, and it's the but it's gonna be a yeah. You'll likely have a few more resources for sure. Bluefield State, that's a team where they get it out the mud. Those if anybody was at those CIAA at the CIAA tournament and watch Bluefield State play, it's their crowd and the players. They don't have a band. They didn't have cheerleaders. It was just them, and they got it off the muscle, and they gave teams problems when they played them. So that's a testament to Devin Hohen getting his guys ready to play when it mattered, and because they have more resources. Fayetteville ain't South Beach, but better location. Yeah, it's much better. It's a much better location. Yeah. Oh, you saying you're worried about him in like you're scared? Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He's going to be a problem at Fayetteville State. Would not be surprised to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see them win the CIAA this year, this upcoming year. I would not be surprised to see Fayetteville State get the job done this year, especially with as good as they've been performing. And I assume that some of the top guys at Bluefield State who have eligibility remaining could follow him to Fayetteville. Who knows? But yeah, I think that this is a prime destination for him, and he will have the eyes of the world on him, looking to see what he is able to do this upcoming season. That wasn't the only big coaching change that happened at the Division II level. We go over to the women's side, and we see that Virginia State, the reigning CIAA championship runner-ups on the women's side, they let go. Well, they didn't let go of their coach. Nadine Doman left the team, and she went on to Morgan State. She's now at Morgan State, and they hired Malek Green to take over that role. So Nadine Doman, she coached multiple 3 or 4 years at Virginia. I could be shortchanging her, but she's been the coach for the past several seasons for Virginia State, and led them to a couple of 20-win seasons, got them to the semifinals of the CIAA tournament the previous year, and this past season got them to the championship game. They fell short to Fayetteville State, who went back to back. And Nadine Doman, she is very deserving of that job at Morgan State. I'm excited to see what she does with a Morgan State team that hasn't been particularly good in the past couple of years. I think she'll have the resources to get that job done, and she has the acumen to get it done. She'll now have the talent to get it. I mean, she had the talent at Virginia State. Don't get me wrong, but she'll be able to recruit the talent to get in that building. She'll recruit the talent in that building to get the job done. But Malek Green is someone that has extensive Division I experience. She coached, I believe she was previously a head coach at. There's a division school that she coached at previously. Didn't have the best overall record there. So, but she is spoken highly of, especially by the new Virginia State AD Tiffany Dawn Sykes. For those who watch this show, Team Tiffany. But yeah, she speaks highly of Coach Malek Green, and talks about how she is and I'm paraphrasing, but she is a real people person, and she is someone that is all about the program, and she is all about winning. And I'm curious to see if Virginia State will be able to continue this trajectory that they're on. They've shown that they've taken those steps to get they've shown them steps to getting themselves in the CIAA championship picture, but they've just been unable to get past Fayetteville State. They've just had their number. Last year, Nala Bryant just went off against Virginia State in the semifinals. Didn't miss a shot in that semifinal game to oust Virginia State from the tournament. And then this past year, they succumbed to an avalanche in the second quarter in the championship game. And now you have Fayetteville State as the back-to-back CIAA champions. And I'm just shocked that Fayetteville State has continued to be able to keep their coach around. I don't know how they have been able to keep that man around. He is tremendous. He has done a tremendous job building this Fayetteville State team into a dynasty. And the fact that no Division I schools have come calling, that it's a blessing for us because we get to keep him and watch what he does on a night in and night out basis. And and I'm just happy to see all of our coaches when we're able to keep them around. I'm surprised that nobody has called Chris Wright from Langston yet. How has he not gotten any jobs at the Division II or Division I level? How has he not gotten a Division I job yet? How has nobody called Bo Browder from Zula yet? The fact that we're able to keep our coaches as long as we have, and they're continuing to build success I love that. Like, I get it. It's the name of the game when you see somebody at a lower level have success that you try to get them for yourself. The same way they do the players, they try to poach our players as well. It's all in the name of the game. I get it, but I just love to see when guys and girls are able to make, or men and women, should I say, but when they're able to make their mark at Division II or NAIA institutions. What Langston is doing right now is incredible with Chris Wright, having them in as a national championship threat every single season. Every year they're a threat to make it to national championship game. And now the women have come along for the ride. They've made it to the NAIA championship tournament this year and made it to the Sweet 16, in their first year under one of the former assistants from the men's squad, so, and Zula has been fantastic for a long time. Bo Browder has had that team running like a well-oiled machine for a long time. It's just that this year was the first time that he was able to have tournament success. He led his team to, I believe, the Sweet 16 as well. I think they were a part of the Sweet 16 in the NAIA tournament. So I really love to see when our coaches and our players are able to survive the transfer portal, the transfer portal fever, or the coaching portal, which never closes. So the fact that the coaching portal never closes and we're able to keep our coaches, the fact that Luke DeLaggio was able to coach two teams to national championship contention or conference championships, and no D1s came calling for him to be their head coach, is kind of surprising to me. But I'm not complaining because we've seen the success that Luke DeLaggio had at Bowie State and at Fayetteville State, and he will have that same success wherever he goes next. I have no doubt about it. It's only so many times you can see a man, have success wherever he goes and say, yeah, I think he can coach. Yeah, I think he can coach, So looking forward to see what Devin Hohen does at Bluefield State. Looking forward to see what Millette Green does at Virginia State. Can't wait to see Nadine Doman lead Morgan State to a conference championship potentially, and wherever Luke DeLaggio lands next. But that's going to do it for the inaugural edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Thank you all for watching. If you can, please, again, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. You can subscribe to become a level 1, level 2, or level 3 member so you can get some exclusive content from the HBCU Sports team. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news at HBCU Sports. Follow us on all the apps, Facebook, Twitter, or what Chris calls the Musty app, the Instagram, TikTok, and Threads, and all of the social medias. We're on there. You search up HBCU Sports, you're gonna find us. But thank you all for watching. Until next time, it's Jared Hoffman. See you guys.